next matters most. And the idea is it's, what is thinking about, talking about, contemplating the future of business, technology, and entrepreneurship. So just sort of like talking about, what are real trends in different industries, and kind of future states, and where do we go? How do we skate where the puck's going to be? But it's also been fun to talk to people to hear more about sort of their entrepreneurial journey, if they're an entrepreneur, as opposed to maybe like a subject matter expert or whatever.
Right.
Kind of story, DNA kind of stuff too. So it's free form. It's pretty much conversation based.
Cool.
But I guess let's just get going.
Yeah, sure.
I guess, welcome Jesse, attorney, entrepreneur extraordinaire. Similar to me, he's a startup that helps startups start up in some ways, a big ecosystem, feeder and an enabler for companies. But I guess give your, elevator pitch bio and kind of how of what you're doing now. And then if you want to go a little bit further, how'd you go from, lawyer to entrepreneur?
Yeah, sure. That's great. I'm happy to give you the story. I'm going to start with, I did a workshop of, we do these kind of founder workshops roughly every quarter. And up until this quarter, we've always done them in person, but obviously we couldn't do that. We couldn't do that this time. And we had sort of been leaning towards doing something virtually anyway, because it's so much work to get a place rented and get food and get everything kind of set up. And then the biggest and hardest part is to actually get people to show up when there's like 1,000 other things going on all the time. So anyway, last week we did a virtual workshop that went really well. And, we did it in conjunction with a company called Entra. And they basically handled, all the technology and actually getting people to sign up for it. But anyway, I sent my wife a link and she watched it. She told me she was 3 of the people that were on it because she had her phone, her computer, and something else that she had it all running at the same time. Anyway, she gave me crap for not talking about my family when I started. So I'm going to start there.
Yeah.
Anyway, so briefly, I grew up outside of Philadelphia. Been here in Raleigh since 2012. Came down, worked for a large law firm for a while, but I live in Raleigh with my wife, who's my high school sweetheart, and we've got 4 kids that range from 5 to 12. My oldest is our only boy, so we've got 1 boy and 3 girls. He, baseball, whatever, got, sort of canceled or postponed or whatever. They just started up about 2 weeks ago, and then he broke his arm over the weekend. Oh, so I was like, you can't win. Anyway, but so anyway, we're here in Raleigh. I started Fourscore about 2.5 years ago, a little bit more than 2.5 years ago, I guess now. I went to law school at Wake Forest, knew I was really interested in business, didn't want to do like litigation, which is what everybody thinks of when they think of lawyers. And started practice in Delaware, which is, where all the big companies, the Fortune 500, most of those are incorporated in Delaware, big business corporation state, and then moved down here. And when I got here, I started working with startups, and it was just very obvious that was really interesting to me. I really like working in closer proximity with people who are excited about what they're doing. And it was very hard to do that at my first job. My second, position, which was the first one here in Raleigh, it was a little bit easier because I was actually working with smaller and early stage companies. But after being in kind of a big firm environment for, 6 or 7 years, I liked what I was doing and I liked the people I was with, but I just couldn't handle that environment anymore. So I've always wanted to start my own business. But I wasn't ready to do that right out of that. I went to a small firm and worked there for about 2 years, kind of learned how the business of the law firm worked. And then in 2017, I launched Fourscore. So we've been thankfully, growing. I've got a team now we've got three, not including myself, three full-time lawyers and a full-time admin tech person. We've got a couple part-time people, whether they're admin, lawyers, paralegals, stuff like that. But we really kind of, all of us rally around this belief that ideas deserve opportunity. And so that's kind of what we've built the business on, that belief. And it's been a lot of fun. We do have an office, but we work remotely a lot. We're very loose kind of in terms of where people are. And we come together for a couple different weekly things that we do regularly so that we get to see each other's faces. But we just have a lot of fun doing what we do together.
Yep, that's awesome. And I like what you said. I guess good point. I guess as entrepreneurs, are we all little mini sociopaths? I'm not sure, and so maybe we should be thinking about others more. So I'm married, and I actually married my college girlfriend, and we met because we were neighbors. So we have a fun little story around that. And we live in South Durham with our three kids, 3 to 9. 3 is almost 4, so he's starting to kind of turn the corner and be really fun. They're always fun, all of them are. But yeah, sending them out to do their like DIY soccer or baseball or basketball practice or just any health care, like physical fitness is just a nightmare, and they fight everything. So like they literally, it doesn't matter. Like if they want to go outside and play, they'll play for hours. If you're like, hey, go like shoot some hoops for 30 minutes and practice dribbling, like just to like do something in case there's ever a league ever again. They're like, no, you're bossing me around. And then we fight. And like some nights I'm just tired because like I'm just tired. And other nights I'm just like emotionally drained from like the battling with the kids. And then trying to really be like, okay, well, tell me how you feel. It's okay. Like, it's okay to be upset. How can I improve? Yeah, I don't even know how we're supposed to talk to them, but I should Google that. Anyways, I like ideas deserve opportunity, and it's something that we share in common for sure. As I have a company, Smashing Boxes, and we help people build their products, but it's fee for service. But over the last few years, we've been trying to noodle on how to create more like a venture building studio, to where we could remove some of these barriers to entry and let good ideas ultimately succeed or fail based on the value they add to the marketplace, taking away things like friction in product building, team building, fundraising, legal, other structural things where these companies trip up. So 1 in 10 or 9 out of 10 companies fail or whatever. I don't know the stat, but how many are for things that could have been easily avoided, and now can we give more things a chance to get to the market and get to the world? So that's cool. Definitely. The other thing that popped into my head was, what's the future of the role of the attorney as a trusted advisor to the business owner? And just from my own sort of background, like I feel like 10 years ago, people funneled all startups to like their professional service providers like lawyers and CPAs for like advice or like intros to investors, or like there's sort of a high bar set by the outside world of like what your lawyer or your CPA could do for you, which was immediately sort of like under delivered on, because it was like, oh shit, I'll just ask my lawyer. Like they're my attorney. They'll help me with like my business. They'll help me with my fundraising. They'll make my idea better. And that was just that's an unfair position to put attorneys in. But then now it's like, well, it can quickly go down to transactional and, balancing wanting to get billable hours and make a living versus like really be a partner with clients. I mean, what does the role of kind of the attorney look like, going forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, what we're trying to do is do whatever we can to sort of reduce the amount of time that our lawyers have to spend on things that are just too simple to spend time on. And so we try to leverage technology. We've been talking a lot about, there are some things that kind of work, but they don't really work exactly the way that I would like them to. And so maybe at some point, we're going to come up with, an idea that will help us be more efficient. But I think there's a lot of different ways to get at that issue. One is through technology. I mean, we're seeing new technology all the time. Duke has that like law tech lab. We're actually looking at that yesterday in our leadership meeting, and potentially, trying to get something together to submit to apply for that. Not this time around, but next year probably. So technology is going to be part of it. I think the way that the business actually works is part of it. Like, the billable hour itself is, we try not to use that. We have to still in certain types of things when it really is transactional, like a venture financing or an M&A deal or something where there's just absolutely no control over how much time and effort it's going to take because you actually have someone negotiating against you. Those types of things, I don't have a better answer yet than the billable hour. But for other stuff, for drafting agreements and reviewing contracts and, attending board meetings and all that kind of stuff, like that doesn't need to be done by the hour anymore. We don't do it that way. It's either on, project-based fees, which kind of aligns everybody's interest to make sure that they get done right and they get done quickly. Or it's some, variant off of a billable hour, whether it's like a subscription, where you have a certain amount of time that we're sort of allocating to a client over a period of a month or so. And then that can kind of help them like even out what their legal spend is. But I'm excited to find or maybe be part of building some additional tools that will really allow lawyers to spend more of their time doing the like relationship building, advising, counseling parts of what we do, and not so much the sitting in front of the computer, drafting stuff from scratch. Because if we can, and we already do this with several different types of documents or packages of documents that we use all the time. We have the ability to get them pretty far down the road before a lawyer really has to spend time on them. And that's just good for everybody because that's going to reduce the time it takes to get things done. It's going to increase the amount of time that we have to spend on more valuable projects for our clients. So I think it's the role. I'm not afraid that like computers are going to, replace lawyers. I mean, and they're going to replace some of the things that lawyers do, but I don't think that, I'm not concerned about like actually not being able to practice law because there's always going to be a place for the relationship side. I mean, one of the things that we do that I think really does kind of make us unique is just kind of we have this phrase, I don't honestly know if this is even a word, but we say that we have like an unapologetically approachable style. And I think that is something that's not going to be able to be replaced by, software, technology, robot, whatever the case may be. We look forward to being able to spend more time, with our clients, understanding what they're going through so that we can figure out the best solution for whatever they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. Yeah. How much are you thinking about like that sort of like the AI piece and the future of legal tech and intelligence? I mean, do you spend a lot of cycles either thinking about it or working on it?
Yeah, I mean, we don't, I mean, it's not like we're sitting around all day around a table, like throwing ideas around, but we do spend a significant amount of energy on that. One of the guys on my team, Sean Valley, is sort of tasked with what we call, he's like our R&D lawyer. And so he's sort of like, we constantly are getting, incoming, basically sales pitches from, tech companies that have some kind of product that's usable for lawyers or, maybe more generally professional services. And so he'll vet those and we'll get into conversations with some of them about what we might be able to use. And then we're also kind of not quite as client facing, but we're also sort of constantly undergoing a evaluation on what are the things that we're doing on a day-to-day basis internally that isn't that valuable or takes an inordinate amount of time or we just don't like to do. And so we're trying to identify those things, update those feelings and thoughts that come from the team, and then either go out and find some way to avoid it, or potentially come up with a solution ourselves that works. What's really been interesting, especially over the last couple of months from working at home, is that it's become very clear to me that I don't know if there is a technology, solution to some of these things that are very, very, or I guess the things that I least like about what I do on a daily basis. I don't know if there's a technology solution for them, but what's become apparent from working at home with a little bit, unbelievably, it's actually less distracting at home, even with kids at home. It has been how important behavior and habits are to being efficient and being able to focus, at least for me. And so I don't know, maybe there's not a true technology answer to those things, but there is an answer. It's just a matter of, can you be disciplined enough and figure out exactly what works and then stick to it?
Yeah. I like the idea of focusing on the value, the most valuable tasks.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you go forward, it's because the law isn't going to change, or the way that the law is sort of distributed as kind of the foundation of knowledge from which everyone debates everything else, case law, whatever. That's not going to be consolidated into one chatbot anytime soon. Right. So, but that there's an art and a science to law, from what I see from my friends and peers, and hearing from people like you, and seeing people at work. And lawyers can make really good business owners and really good business partners, because just knowing the law and being able to have a mastery of it is important, whether it's contracts or creativity in your contract writing. If it's a deal or it's a buyout, is it going to be an option? There's all these things that sort of many entrepreneurs are not natural deal makers. And so that sort of guidance, someone to walk with them, knowing what's in and what's out, and what's feasible, what's not feasible, what's good and fair versus not, what's in your best interest, what's not. That sort of I was going to say, that's the kind of thing that is the human touch when we think about artificial intelligence, with that human final front end, or some human is in there somewhere, whether it's at the beginning or at the end, to say, yes, no, or also to kind of get the recommendations. Because I don't know how you get all the inputs in there for then that bot to be like, here are the 4 best opportunities to exploit this with your legal stuff. And here's the exact, they can maybe actually tee you up with these and identify stuff. And then you've got to be the one that strategically guides kind of the client. So I think in that regard, what is your dream? What's the future of your business, or for Jesse Jones? What's your dream life looking like in 5 or 10 years?
Yeah. Well, I think before I answer that, what you just said about the, basically almost a partnership between, technology and the human side of what we do, I'm looking forward to that, because I think what technology can do, or it probably can already do, but will definitely be able to do in some short amount of time, is to really kind of issue spot and bring different possibilities kind of to the surface, and frankly, maybe better than humans can. I don't know, but what's definitely what I'm looking forward to there is, we're a relationship business, and we're always trying to build our relationships with our clients so that we can provide the best value and the best service that they can get. And part of that is knowing who they are. And that happens the more we work with them, the more time we spend with them, the better we get to know who they are, and really can then take those options that are available and help them understand what each of them really means and help them think through from a human perspective what is going to leave them with the best taste in their mouth and is going to, just going to provide them the best value for them personally in their particular situation. That's the piece that I think we'll be able to spend more and more time on as we use technology to do the other stuff. So the question about next 5 to 10 years. So, I mean, from a Fourscore perspective, I would like to continue to grow. I don't, I don't have aspirations to be a huge law firm or really even to be a full service firm. We really focus on venture financing, M&A, and we serve as outside general counsel. And the general counsel stuff is pretty broad, but we don't write patent applications. We don't do litigation. We're not tax attorneys, and I don't really think that stuff is going to change. I'm not looking to, build a patent practice and add a litigator and, do all this other stuff. I don't think we're going to go that way. There are definitely times when I think this would be better if I could just have all this in-house, but I think that our team is going to grow slowly and expand a little bit in terms of like what we do. But I think, the next 5 years for Fourscore is probably, going from 5 full-time to maybe 12 full-time, maybe 15. I don't think that Fourscore will be bigger than that unless we decide to go a different direction. The last guy that I hired is in San Jose in California. And that has been really good. It's been interesting to get boots on the ground, kind of in the hotbed of technology. Before everything got shut down, most of his time, he's a lawyer, but most of his time was spent doing business development. And that obviously has changed in the last 8 weeks or so, just because he hasn't been able to get out there. But I think that presence will grow a little bit, and we'll probably have 2 or 3 people out there. But the way I'm envisioning it now anyway is that, the Triangle will be sort of our headquarters. And we may never do another location other than sort of the Bay Area, but it's possible we would if we came up with a really good opportunity to maybe, put another person or 2 in a different market. That might make sense. For me personally, I mean, I'm super interested. I'm reading a book right now called, actually I'm reading 2 books. Well, I'm reading one, listening to one. One is called Buy Then Build. And it's about, it's basically called like acquisition entrepreneurship is what the guy calls it. I can't remember I'm terrible with author names. I can't remember what the guy's name is, but I've been doing some real estate investing over the last 4 years or so. And I love real estate. That's really cool. I've liked learning about it. But I'm also interested in potentially trying to, get another business up and running. I don't think I would start another business unless it was necessary, but trying to identify and acquire a small but solid business is something I'm definitely interested in doing in the next couple of years. And then I'm listening to a book called The Common Rule, and it was just sort of randomly a couple different people suggested it over the last couple of weeks. So I'm listening to that on Audible. That's pretty interesting. It's actually written by a corporate lawyer. Sorry, I'm getting a phone call. Written by a corporate lawyer who was originally like a missionary to China, and then came back to the U.S., went to law school, and then he's a partner at some big DC corporate firm, I think. But it's all about like building habits. It's all about structuring your life intentionally, because otherwise someone else will structure it for you. And that's a lot of that has been just really, I mean, I've probably been learning that since I started working, really, the last 10, 12 years, whatever it's been. As a young, probably not just lawyer, young person, like in the workplace for the first time, at least I was, kind of paranoid about ever saying no if someone asked me to do something. And that kind of leads you down the path of like letting other people control really your whole life, because they'll take all the time you're going to give them. And if you're not going to say no, they're going to take all your time. And I mean, some of that you kind of have to deal with as a young person in the workplace, but it's been very interesting to kind of see how my own habits have kind of changed over the last 5 years, especially, probably. And then listening to this book has been interesting too.
Yeah. So I looked them up. I guess the common rule is habits of purpose for an age of distraction.
Yeah, that's right.
Justin Whitmill Early. And then the other one, I don't blame. Let's see, Buy Then Build. Something about how acquisition entrepreneurs ... But that author is Walker Diebel.
That's right. Yeah.
No offense, Walker, but I read that name. I was like, that just doesn't roll off the tip of the tongue. Anyway, that's cool. So, that's like an interesting answer, and because everyone wants to be scaling, or like, I'm doing this, or here's my plan, and but there's all this content about all these other people that aren't the newsworthy. I just raised venture capital, or I did, and it's not newsworthy. It's just like what gets the press, like what's easy press. And you're saying, like, I want to grow a practice that is small but makes a big impact on clients. But maybe the way you get your sort of at scale kind of stuff in the business world is through acquisition, using your skills and applying them to something that you can buy and then build potentially, which I think I've always wanted to. We've talked about this. I sort of like of the mind of, there's a few ideas I could probably spin up from zero, but why not just look at myself as a miniature PE thing?
Right.
Like, hey, there's an opportunity, could use more technology.
Yep.
Technology could help. Technology and some sales could like increase top line, increase bottom line, and change the multiple. Like, that could be a great strategy, and we could be, investors practically. I don't know what people would call that, but it's sort of a different way of using this knowledge and expertise, and trying to almost go with the current a little bit more and say, hey, this is something that's already operating. They've taken some risk out. They've smoothed the way for some path, and we just want to take that path and turn it to a different trajectory.
Yep.
So, I'd love to kind of hear how that goes over time. And good for you for reading. Actually, I like that, acquisition entrepreneurs, because I feel like that could be something that applies to many. So I have two different things that are totally separate, but I'll start with one, which is, where do you like to fit in? If you're thinking about working with small businesses, there's sort of the phase, if it's a continuum, there's the 0 to 1 phase, start or launch or whatever. There's a bunch of books and metaphors. And then there's also sort of exit, succession planning, M&A. Well, M&A might actually happen in the middle if it's them doing the M&A versus getting M&A. But sort of like 0 to 1, growth, scaling, exit, and succession planning. What do you like to be the most? And like, what do you think adds the most value? Or where do you add the most value?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think we probably add the most value to clients who, there's two different buckets for that. So we definitely do add value for brand new entrepreneurs who don't know what to do, because we have worked companies through that 0 to 1 phase literally hundreds of times. And so if there is someone who has not started a business before, we can certainly add value. Although, that a lot of that stuff falls into, some of the things that don't really require a lot of time anymore on the lawyer's part. And a lot of the education that those brand new entrepreneurs need is available everywhere. We put together an ebook that's on our website and available. It's called the New Business Blueprint. We have several different video series. We've got some white papers on various topics and a ton of small, shorter articles about anything to do with starting a business. And so, really entrepreneurs can kind of get pretty well educated without necessarily talking to an attorney. With that said, if you've never done it before, there are certainly like nuances to setting up a corporation and deciding whether to use a corporate form versus an LLC. What state law do you use? All that kind of stuff. There are some nuances there where we really can kind of provide value by sitting down and talking with somebody. But I think where we're really starting to add more and more value is to clients that are really like about to go raise money, if that's what they decide they need to do for their business. Everybody has questions about raising money from investors. There is a lot of stuff out there, and even on our website, there's stuff, there's content there about getting educated on the process and everything. But man, it's so, the terms of the deals are probably largely the same, as long as you're talking about the same type of security, if it's preferred stock or notes or safes or something else. But everybody's circumstances are different. And so I think that is where we add a lot of value, is helping entrepreneurs either decide between term sheets or really even decide like what exactly are they looking for and why. That's an area where we can add a lot of value. And then also sort of in the M&A context, I've been working currently on a deal where we're representing a company here in the U.S. that's merging with a UK business, and they're in like the biotech sort of like testing field, which is, we started working on this before the whole COVID insanity happened, and that has just it hasn't killed the deal. It's going to close on Friday, hopefully, but that has just put everybody's focus on things other than getting the deal done, because everybody all of a sudden needs to focus on their lab and the tests that they've got and the ways that they can, potentially come up with some way to use a different test to try to test for COVID. And like that was what everybody was thinking about. And so we added a ton of value there, because we really had, like, if we didn't lead our client to the finish line, especially over the last 2 months, this deal definitely would not have happened, because nobody was focused on it. It's important, but it's not urgent. It's the urgency of the day. Every day was taking over the business people's, time. And so having an attorney or a law firm that can help you, help keep you on track and make sure you're protected in the documents that you're signing, and also like not kill the deal. Like there's a lot of bad feelings or thoughts or whatever about lawyers that just kind of constantly point out problems and, this is a risk to you. This is a risk to you. And yeah, obviously we have to make sure we're aware of and make our clients aware of the risks that they're taking. But just pointing out problems, that's what a computer can do. But pointing out a solution is something that's what we're good at. That's where we provide the value.
Yep. What's the difference? Where's there the gray area? What's gray area and what's like against the law, for lack of a better word? Meaning you want your client to close their deal, so you can't not like mention risks. You can't just say, oh, yeah, it's not a big deal, because now you sort of said, well, oh, my attorney said it's not a big deal. It turned out to be a big deal. How do you differentiate between overly, because I know exactly what you mean, which is like, I think we should do this. It's like, come on, strategically, is that important? I don't know. There's a lot of, I've experienced the bad lawyer vibe, but there's also been plenty of good where it's, thoughtful, strategic counsel, and it's advice, and it's human to human conversations about what's just practical. So I've seen both, and it just both exist. And some of that negative piece might exist for a reason. I guess maybe what is that, level of, where's that line? Is there a line that just lawyers have to always stay behind? Otherwise they're going to like get in trouble or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. We are technically there to advise on the law and the language of contract, but I think that, the value add firm, which is what we try to be, is going to go beyond that and help the client peel back the layers and really understand from a practical level, this is what it says from a legal perspective, but from a practical level, what does that actually mean? And yes, there is risk that we need to point out. For example, the deal that I was just talking about, that our client, the owner of the business that's merging into this UK company, the whole time has been talking about having a board seat at the holding company that's being created to hold these two entities. And we finally got all the documents, and there's nothing, it's all agreed that this person will be a director on that board, but there's no right to be a director. There's nothing that would stop, the other directors or the majority of the stockholders of that holding company from kicking our client off. And so we had to bring that up. Obviously that's a big deal because the client needs to understand, the position that they're in by signing these documents. But just bringing it up is not that helpful. I mean, it's necessary, but we need to come up with a way to deal with it because we're at the 11th hour and we finally got the employment agreement and it doesn't say what we thought it was going to say. And so, we made a couple of suggestions. We went with one of them, and it still doesn't provide exactly what we were expecting. There's still no contractual right to a board seat, but the client is comfortable with what the repercussions would be if they were kicked off the board, that they're, willing to kind of move forward, and because they understand what the risk is and they're willing to take it. And really, so often that's what things come down to is there might not be a way to get exactly what you want, but it's our job as the attorney to make sure that you understand what the risk is and that you are aware of what the options are. Because at the end of the day, the option might be you either take the risk or you don't do this deal. And that's fine. That's the way it is sometimes, but it's our job to make sure the client fully understands what they're signing up for.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thinking of the old, sort of, attorney as the right-hand man or woman to a business owner, and how valuable that role could be. Do attorneys ever, I wouldn't say work on contingency, but are they ever outcome based? Is there ever a retro to say, did this deal actually work out? And if it didn't, was it at all due to sort of the guidance that we came up with or the strategy we put in place? And is there things we could change, or was it just yeah, we got there and then the market shit the bed, or what? There's plenty of times that stuff doesn't work out.
Yeah.
But how do you guys think about that?
Yeah. So, from there are, there's certain, there's litigators sometimes will work on contingency where they take a percentage of whatever settlement there is or something. From a business perspective, I would certainly be open to that. Sometimes we've done not in the midst of an actual transaction, but we have done, we provide a discount or something for a piece of equity in the company, or we work out some kind of alternative arrangement that will lower the cash required to do whatever it is they're asking for. But from a deal perspective, I have personally never worked on a deal where we don't get paid unless the deal closes or something like that.
Oh, right.
That would be, in some ways, would be awesome, but that you can see how that could definitely put us in a position where we have more than just our client's interest in mind, which would not be a good position for anybody really to be in.
Yeah. Well, and not closing might be the best outcome, and you don't want to have all of your personal incentives tied to one outcome.
Exactly.
One of two good paths, right?
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. So that is not something we have done. I do think, I know I've talked to lawyers before where it's not completely binary, but they have some kind of arrangement where if the deal doesn't close, there might be some kind of like discount applied to the bill or something like that. But again, that kind of like, you just have to be really careful with that, because you need to, we need to make sure that the only thing that matters to us is that our client does what's best for our client. And so, it's, if we're really close with the client, which is how we want to be with most of our clients, we can usually work something out, but don't want to even like create the possibility that it would look like we're not, we don't have their best interest in mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I mean, and maybe where I'm getting to is, and this could be the future of law or not, but that partnership isn't about even one transaction. So it's bigger than one transaction, but are the outcomes you're trying to achieve together being met, and are they being met because of your positive contribution?
Mm-hmm.
So like that might be that one deal, or might not be that deal, or might be that deal in a sequence of other sort of things that you're working on or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, because I want to know, and I've got two kind of things, and this will spring off into two things. One is like, if we're thinking about law tech, legal tech, whatever you call it, attorneys in general, what is their, what's guidance for them? What should they be thinking about? Because I heard you also say it's important for attorneys to get smarter. And you didn't say that verbatim, but you said like how to start a company. That attorney is called google.com. Like go do that. Go get all that knowledge. If you're charging people thousands of dollars to just get that, you get on the wrong side of the value equation quickly. And they're like, oh, shit, thank you so much. But you don't know as much as Google. Google has all this shit. Like Google has, I don't even know the stats, but they're scanning millions and millions of articles a second to try to like aggregate it and make it contextually relevant and so on and so forth. And also with the disclaimer of we're not an attorney, so they have no liability. So like it's perfect. Someone should get that for free so that by the time they get to you, you've got something that's extra special, whether it's the human touch or it's strategy, and that strategy leads to outcomes. So as you think about advising that future attorney or any current attorney who's like, what's the future of my practice look like? Speak to that. And then the other thing, which you can maybe lace into it is, if it was something for like startups and entrepreneurs and they're like, yeah, how to leverage your attorney for a 10x return, ... You don't have to do that verbatim, but like, how would you start to fill in those gaps so people know how to engage with attorneys kind of now in this sort of future ideal state of where, attorneys are back on top in terms of that, the fulcrum of value, or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think one of the best ways to leverage your, attorney relationship, and probably your, other professional services as well, is particularly in situations where the founder or the business person truly does not know what they're doing. But even if it is something that, with an unlimited amount of time, you could figure it out. Like, there's not a whole lot of stuff that's like rocket science that you're never going to be able to do, But the question is, how much of your time is it worth? Because if it's going to take you, Nick, all day to figure out how to, deal with a buy-sell provision in an operating agreement with a partner, but you're going to pay a lawyer $500 to like figure it out for you, that is going to be a huge value add, because it's going to be done the right way, and it doesn't waste an entire day that you could be focused on building your business or doing whatever else you need to have done that day. So I think from that perspective, like leveraging other people's time is huge. The first part of your question was what? Was about getting smarter? Is that what we were talking about?
Yeah, like I mean, if the audience is like the attorney, and they're or an aspiring attorney or young attorney or law school person, what's their, what should they be aiming for, right? Because I think school, a lot of these mechanisms are sort of like lagging. I don't know if lagging indicator is the right word, but they're sort of, these are people, the professors were successful 30 years ago or 20
Right.
years ago. And now they're like, hey, this is how it works. You go do this, this, this. And then you get out and you're like, shit, that was worthless.
Right.
So what should those people be thinking about for where the value is going to be created between lawyer and user or lawyer and marketplace?
Mm-hmm.
And I reference the getting smarter, meaning like, don't help people with stuff they should Google, get smarter and do something different that's up the chain, the value chain.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that is, that particular question is tough though, because I think the answer is, it's really, really important to be building relationships all the time. And that could be with, people that are on the investor side of the equation, or on the, potential acquirer side of the equation, or it could also be, other professionals that can help, people that you represent, whether they are other lawyers that do different things, or they are bankers or CPAs or insurance people, or, estate planners, or, financial people, whatever. I mean, there's like an infinite number of things that people need help with. But the difficulty from a relationship point of view with clients, especially if you're wanting to work with entrepreneurs, is, truthfully, there is a lot that people can do on their own, or at least learn on their own, using Google and using, the content that's out there already. But inevitably, they're going to have questions. And at some point, most people are probably going to want to ask someone that they feel will know the answer, so they can confirm what they've learned. And at that point is really where I think, not younger lawyers, I mean, myself included, like lawyers in general, can really start to kind of build those early stage relationships with people that are going to be clients for their life. And so even though there is so much that can be done, by the business person for themselves, I think it's really, really important that lawyers in general, focus on helping people with the questions that they have at that time. Even if it's not really, from our view, it's not a huge value add project, because it's really something they could figure out on their own, or because we just would rather spend time, on a project that's a little bit more clearly value add. It is a value add to somebody that needs the help. And if you're around and you're available and you're willing to help, that's how you start building a relationship.
That's right. Yeah. And you're kind of saying something that, and I'll try to keep us on time, I think that I hear a lot, which is, when you're there, how do you go from answering the questions people have to helping like message or lead them to a solution or a strategy that's needed, right? So one is sort of like, hey, who's got a question? Who's got their hand up? Like, I'll answer. Versus saying like, where are you going? And putting more onus back on the client or the business owner or the entrepreneur to say, hey, give me a full plan with deviations is fine, or like other options at each, stop on the route to success. But once you have that bigger picture, you can help them. You can say, forget this question. That question's not important.
Exactly.
It's like, how much is this? Like, I don't know. What are you trying to do? Like, I can't even answer. Right. So how do you get them thinking, or what's maybe that, I don't know, is that advice for your potential clients or for people out there in the world to leverage their attorney? It's not just ask lots of questions. It's to, what is that? Like, what is that? Is it have a plan? Is it, think about your full strategy so that you can let expertise kind of weigh in at the highest level of value?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I put in a lot of the different slide decks that I have for presentations or workshops or whatever we're doing is how important it really is at the beginning to start at the end. And if you don't really know like what you're aiming at, then you need to slow down already, because if you've got a partner and the two partners haven't discussed like what they actually want out of this business, then that's not a good place to start, because you're two horses pulling in different directions. It's like you're not going to get there. Same thing comes when you're thinking about whether or not you need to raise capital. It's like why would you raise capital right now? Okay, so maybe there is a good reason. So how much money do you need to raise? Well, what do you have to accomplish in order to like increase the value of your company with the money that you're going to get? You kind of have to start at the end and then like work backwards and fill in the details so that you know what the first step is.
Yeah.
And I think that it is obviously helpful for lawyers and other people to answer questions, but it's even more important, I think, for us to make sure that our clients are asking the right questions. Because if they're not, then they're getting answers, but that doesn't really move the ball.
Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah. I mean, I think, to say a positive on the professional services front, the value of talking to someone in professional services, like an attorney, is you've seen so many things, so many different times. Like every deal or every relationship probably has some level of uniqueness. Everything is its own special snowflake, but there are patterns in business and transactions and technology, and being able to help an entrepreneur or business owner or business or whomever your potential client might be, identify those patterns is important. And I think, I hear you kind of say it naturally, but it's almost like, how does the attorney become like a coach, coaching mentality of like not answering questions, more turning it back over to the client to say, cool, like helping them start to see either the pattern or start to see where their, issues are having some overlap, or to help them dive deeper and think of solutions themselves and not just kick everything over the wall. And now your partner in this is becoming more strategic, and now they're able to leverage you for the things that where you can really add the most value. And so I think, that's great. And also just to sort of sum up the sales pitch for attorneys, which I don't mean that, but, the best ways to engage, to get 10X out of your relationship with a potential attorney, I think it's important for entrepreneurs to think about their own lifetime value as a client, like where are you going and where's all the opportunity that's going to be had and be created by this thing that I'm, this adventure that I'm embarking on. And I need to be able to articulate that and share that with Jesse and the Fourscores of the world so that they can actually impact me in the highest value way possible. If you go in and ask for something transactional, you'll likely get something transactional. It sounds like you also invest into that relationship building, and you ask that of the people that you are potentially working with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's definitely part of our core values and how we try to provide value every day is by going a little bit deeper, try to make the connections, see what our clients really are like and what they need. I mean, I've been doing this long enough now that I have seen the results of people doing stuff the wrong way at the beginning. And, sometimes even the stuff that is really simple, if it's not done the right way, can have disastrous results, whether it's between founders or between founders and investors, or between customers and people, whatever the case may be. You really do have to, as an entrepreneur, make sure you surround yourself with people who are really good at what you're not good at.
That's right. So, I just feel like I cracked open a decent can of worms for another entire hour, but there is a 10X your relationship with your attorney, right? I mean, I'm not trying to make it like client attorney and it's like transactional, but like with the right professionals around you, you get more out of your early partnership deals, out of key customer contacts, out of M&A stuff. And if you have the right person that's thinking strategically together with you and you both invest into that, you can stack those things up and you can make a 10X argument,
Yeah.
I mean, shit, it's like, did you sell for X or did you sell for this? Did you have this clause in your thing or not? Did you have these terms for cancellation with this key contract? Like all those things do add up. And, I feel like that's a great message for attorneys too, like starting to focus on value. Like we want you to get 10X a return. You'll definitely get that shit 10X on your spend with legal. I'm saying you should go. I mean, I want businesses to think that they could actually get 10X return on their own business if they partner with the right people, which includes legal. So I think that's a powerful thing. All right, sweet. Well, any closing thoughts, comments? I'd love to get into way more, but I don't want to go too far over the hour that we had planned, and we've got 3 minutes left on that. But any last thoughts on sort of the future of business, technology, entrepreneurship, and how you or legal plays a role in that?
I mean, I think I'm curious to see what long term. I'm very excited. I mean, I think that technology will continue to get better. I think for the most part, larger law firms have a very hard time like adapting and using new habits, new technology, new anything. And so I'm very, very excited for the smaller, to mid-size firms where they can, really leverage that stuff to be just tremendously more efficient than the bigger, their bigger counterparts. The short-term future, I'm curious. I'm interested to see what happens with, investor activity and M&A activity. I think the rest of 2020, I really don't know what to expect. I feel like we're sort of starting to like enter the period where people are going to stop playing so nice because everybody's sort of been in this together and it's been great and everybody's been cooperative. But, at some point that's not going to last. And so I'm curious to see what happens throughout the end of the year with, with people that have leases that they've not been paying and people that have other types of contracts that they haven't been able to fulfill their obligations under. We'll see what happens. But I think long term, I'm super excited. Short term future, I'm curious.
Yeah. Super well said. That's actually that could be a panel. Like what happens when we stop playing nice, like we're in it together, stronger, like what about my rent? Yeah. That's great. And what are you taking any steps towards the buy then build?
So actually I work with a CPA who's very kind of business minded, and he and I are actually reading it together.
Okay.
And so one of the thing I spent the most time on is sort of defining what the target statement is.
Yep.
Because it's easy to get on the internet and look around at businesses that have been posted for sale, but just like anything else, that's probably the least efficient and serious way to like get to an actual deal. Yeah. And so I've tried to kind of step back and really think about and write down what it is I'm actually looking for. And it's not a specific like industry. It's not a specific type of business. It's more, what type of organization is it? Is it a service business like I'm in now, or is it a distribution company, or is it some kind of product oriented business? And then, being realistic about the size that it would have to be to, be comfortable with the risk it's going to take to borrow however much you have to borrow to do it. All that kind of stuff has been very, very interesting. So I'm not all the way through the book yet. I think I'm on chapter 7. But I will certainly let you know.
Yeah. Chapter 12. Actually, never mind. Don't do it. Like, oh, shit. I should have finished the book. Well, that's great. No, I think that speaks to, all the people that I'm talking to have some sort of bent towards, and hopefully others don't. Hopefully others can represent other angles. But I love the sort of bent towards entrepreneurship, which is you're doing one thing and also thinking about kind of what's next. And that even could be a what's next for the professional services firm. I think about it in the exact same way of how do I build different asset types or portfolio or revenue streams, because services are great and we love being in that role in terms of smashing boxes as a company. But there are other ways out there to do things, and those other ways might be the best chance we have at gaining some scale or diversification, or a number of things that are beneficial to a business owner. Cool, man. Well, let's break. I appreciate you taking time to do this.
Yeah,
and
no problem.
I'm always happy when we see each other in person or catch up and connect and network. And this, I thought, went super well. So
yeah, no, thanks for the invite.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. I appreciate it. Well, stay safe, dude. And I'll talk to you soon.
Will do. Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Jesse.
Later.
See you. Bye.